Then we have one more, right? Yeah. Let's check it out. Let's see. Yep. Proceed through the door. So long as this memory exists, so long as mankind has hope, a bloody battle will be waged over the holy domain of the body. Wow, that one is. What is this? Wow, these things are resilient. I guess this is one of those things like it's worth upgrading the weapons so that you can do the DLC faster so that you can upgrade the weapons. Or maybe you just magic the shit out of everything. I also think it's interesting to think about how there are essentially two entities in the game. There is the Gestalt-Nier and the Replicant-Nier. We play as the Replicant-Nier, and the Gestalt-Nier is the Shadow Lord. And this duality, it is interesting to think of what those entities are and what they mean. I love this location. Like Seafront is over there. That's awesome. So it is revealed to us that the shades are the souls of the humans. It's super interesting to think about that, in my opinion, because you have the whole idea here is that the souls had to be separated from the body, but the body created sentience for itself. So whether the body has created a soul for itself, or if it's simply automated sentience, the sentience requires soul. That is also one of the philosophical themes that the game is trying to hit upon, and that is hit much harder by Automata. This is kind of like a side effect, subtext of this game. It was really developed through Automata. But in here you have this duality of we have body and we have soul. So Nier is actually essentially a mind-body dualist kind of game. You have to be at least somewhat okay with that theory to swallow the whole premise that there is such a thing as a soul and that it is essentially different enough from the body that you could somehow perhaps separate the two. And that's a tough pill to swallow, but you know, difference of opinion there. But you have those two aspects, and what exists as it is presented by the game is us as the protagonist, who is a shell. He is simply a body that gains sentience and goes to enact revenge against the soul. And it is interesting to think about this specifically as it relates to Nier and the Shadow Lord. There we go. The boss music in this DLC is amazing. Good stuff. Foolish human, foolish human, foolish human, foolish vessel. Nier and the Shadow Lord are really interesting, contrasting bits in the sense that with the Shadow Lord, you have the soul, but the Shadow Lord is also an entity that was perfectly content with being holed up in his castle for thousands of years, waiting for something to happen. And while you have the body, who is a much more reactive entity that didn't think at all about its actions, the body is just an expression of action. So you have not only this duality of good versus evil, right versus wrong in different sides of the story, but you also have a duality of mind versus body, where your mind is sometimes too happy with just being in its own corner and it doesn't take action, whereas your body is perhaps sometimes still happy with taking action without considering its implications and doesn't give the context its due importance. I find that detail, because I think it is a detail, like it's not something that the game is ever going to tell you, but it is something that you can stop and think about. And I find that super interesting. And I think a lot of games sell themselves short by trying to explain themselves too much, or by having really shallow messages, or just things that are not that interesting to say or to ponder. All is paid, all is sacrifice. One of the main things about Yoko Taro's work for me is that it says interesting things. It is a game that is clearly designed because it has a thing it wants to talk to you about. And that is sorely missing in today's gaming industry in general. And it's really, really bizarre when you have, nowadays, you have games going out of their way. Like you have media releases saying that their games are actually not trying to say anything. Like that's a positive somehow. And that's really strange, that's really bizarre. I don't think it's required for a game to say anything, but I personally enjoy them more if they do, even if I don't specifically agree. So for instance, I am not very strong into the mind-body dualism kind of theory, but I can still appreciate this game in its own merits about what it's trying to tell me. I appreciate that Yoko Taro and Square Enix and Cavia originally took the time to craft this story that had a message. They're like, here, think about these themes with me. Like let's ponder about this. Let's ponder about the nature of the human being. Let's ponder about the nature of the soul. Let's think about what it means to take action. Let's ponder on what it means to not take action. Because the Shadow Lord, the soul, it dooms itself by being inactive. Perhaps if the Shadow Lord had been a little bit more proactive and had actually done shit at all, Nier would not have come. The body would not have taken action by itself. It would have been a conversion of things that would have worked. And that's pretty interesting. And that's something that is worth pondering about. Yeah. So I am desperately in love with the idea of games having messages, having things to say. And it feels incredibly disappointing that nowadays they don't seem to be going that way at all. Which is, yeah, just incredibly disappointing. It's very heartbreaking. And I don't know, it's weird. And I guess this, in the topic of games not being particularly ambitious anymore, at least not at this level, not at like, is Nier Replicant a AAA game? I guess that's up for some level of discussion. It's definitely not an indie game or anything, it's made by Square Enix. And it sold really well as far as I'm concerned, but is selling really well a measure of AAA? Is Minecraft a AAA game because it sold really well? I don't think that's how that works. So let's operate under the assumption that Nier is indeed somehow a AAA game. There are not many AAA games that are willing to take philosophical risks. And that's too bad. What you have nowadays is mostly games trying to occupy space, occupy your time, occupy your existence without really anything in return. And don't get me wrong, I have mentioned quite a few times in this channel already, all over the videos and the series, that I love playing Diablo 3. That's a thing that I do. I will play Diablo 3 a few times per year at the start of each season. I've been doing that for like a year or something. And it's always fun. I always enjoy it. And that's great. That's good for me. That's good for Diablo 3. That's good for everybody. However, I find it very curious that when I look at my Diablo 3 experience, at the start of the season, I will usually play for 1 or 2 weeks, and then I very clearly stop. And I will only get back into the game when I have, like, I don't know, something that I need to listen, like an audiobook or a podcast. Or if I am feeling particularly stressed and I just need to kind of meditate, and then the game works on that level. And that's fine, but it's just like, I feel like there is space for games like Diablo 3 to exist, definitely. I don't think anybody would win anything if games like Diablo 3 and Path of Exile and stuff like that were not a thing, or like Destiny, or whatever it is that people use to kill time, Fortnite. Do not bring back the light. Do not bring back the vessel. Do not bring back the future. Do not bring it back. I definitely do see the appeal of these games from a meditative, almost, perspective. However, I am somewhat forced to also say that if your whole purpose for playing a game is to waste, and that's the operative word, waste your time, then perhaps there must be some sort of better use for your time. Because, and I'm sorry for getting slightly preachy here, but time really is the only thing that is finite in this world. So if you're searching for active ways to waste your time, perhaps you should just use it instead. Learn a thing, do something new, get something that is fun. Because that's the thing that I think is really interesting about the way that I engage with Diablo 3 and games like it. Diablo 3 is fun for a week, and then it definitely stops being fun, and it becomes a thing that is just there. And that's not great. Like, that's not a good thing, to just waste time like that. It's warranted, I think. Don't get me wrong, it's like everything in moderation. So if you do it every once in a while, I don't think you should worry, much in the same way that I am not particularly bothered by the fact that I play Diablo 3 every once and again. However, I think the industry, as it goes nowadays, is really banking on this idea of games that you can just repeat and keep, like games that really trap you and that want you to be there and not leave, but also not really think about anything. They are just there, and mostly in the hopes that you pay for microtransactions, but sometimes not even that, which I find really bizarre. They're just like, I would love if somebody just told me this, like, why are the servers for Diablo 3 still live? Is it counted as like, is this like part of the marketing budget for Diablo 4? Like, you're just trying to keep players in the ecosystem because you're going to release something else. If that's the case, that's like semi-fine, I guess. But I don't know, I find it odd that, I find it really bizarre how the industry has evolved to not want to tell stories, not want to have messages and have conversations, but just want to waste your time. And I've actually been finding very difficult to find new games to engage in because the game design is often so transparent. every being of light is an invitation to death. And maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places, but it's just like, I think nowadays there is definitely some mixing into what is a good game and what is a game that can trap the players inside of it. I was playing Biomutant recently, and it's like, that game is not good. The combat feels really bad, like it feels like nothing, basically, is the problem. But you can tell how the design of the game has these several aspects that don't do anything for the game. You have like a ridiculous amount of weapon customization and stat allocation and weird builds and things, and it's just like, that is all fluff on top of a combat system that is actually really bad and really ineffective. Like, it doesn't feel good to play it. There's just this abundance of mechanics that do nothing for the actual enjoyment of the game. At least not to me. Maybe somebody sees weapons customization, they're like, yes, I can finally make my perfect weapon that is exactly the way that I want it to be, and they think that's super cool. But I don't know, I definitely, for me, the enjoyment of games is in experiencing something that is directed, something that a group of artists got together to really craft, and yeah, something that has some sort of identity to it, which really is why I think that this game is such a jewel in today's world. Because really, you don't get many things like this anymore. It's something that clearly has a message, something it wants to tell you, and something that was done with creative vision. Something that is not just trying to check a bunch of boxes. And yeah, I will bang on that drum forever. I really think this sort of stuff is needed, is important. It is how the medium can be developed. And I worry because that is not the way that things are going. Even if this game was released this year, and there are definitely games that release nowadays that have interesting concepts and things to say, that is not the trend where the game industry as a whole is going. And when I say as a whole, I mean the AAA stuff, because you always have, especially now that we have a lot of tools for solo developers, so you always have small teams of up-and-coming people that really want to do original creative ideas. And I guess as time goes on, indie games will become more intricate. The value of the gaming industry will definitely shift towards indies, if it hasn't already, and I'm just like outdated. The counterbalance to that is just thinking we really are living in an age where the vast majority of games that can be counted as successful are just games that exist to fill up space, and games that don't aim to say anything interesting, games that don't have any sort of creative ambition. They are just checkboxes. They are designed by committee and to fulfill certain mechanical obligations that will ensure that you are trapped within their mechanics. And I find that exasperating, really. That is the word. That engenders in me some incredibly fearful feeling for the future of this thing that I love. Anyway, stuff. Yeah, this is closer to what I would want, because it's like, yeah, here you have like 3 unique enemies. They each have their own patterns and things, and fighting them takes more than a second. Like, this one rewards you for doing good parrying. The other one rewards you for stun blocking him with magic, I guess. So it's a more magic-focused boss. Good stuff. Oh, who's the last one? Oh, this one is new, I think. Whoa, wow. Oh, he has company. It seems to be essentially the same mechanic as the other one that we just fought. Parry a lot. Wow, wow, wow. Let's try to not die because dying is bad. Shit. This thing is really strong. So perhaps this is one to be taken at distance. Got the loop. Was in the zone there for a second. Nice, good stuff. It is very satisfying once you get into the parrying zone. Ooh, 10,000 experience points, wow. 8,000 gold. A dreaming vessel in a recycled world. Until the time of its awakening comes. No more outfits? A little bit disappointing.
Is that all?
Huh?
Is that the final entry of the diary?
It seems that way.
Interesting.
You figure anything out?
I fear not.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Oh well. I guess that'll be this or this or that for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it. And I hope to see you in the next one. And until then, take care. Bye bye.